Have you ever sat alone and felt the full weight of every word that should have never been spoken to you? Have you ever replayed scenes over and over in your mind, moments where you were too kind, too loyal, too forgiving, and they mistook all of that for weakness? Let me tell you something important. You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. You are finally waking up to the poison you have been quietly swallowing. There comes a point when your soul simply cannot take another fake smile, another manipulative apology, another draining phone call that leaves you empty and questioning your worth. And if you are hearing this right now, I need you to open your eyes. Here is the truth. The most powerful thing you will ever do for yourself is not to argue, not to fight back, and not to explain your side of the story. It is this: you go quiet, you go still, and you walk away without saying a word. You do not need to write a long message. You do not owe anyone an explanation. You do not need their closure. They had time, they had space, they had opportunities to do right by you, and they chose to waste them. Now it is over. Toxic people thrive on your reaction. They seek your attention. They prey on your empathy. They twist your kindness into confusion. But when you give them nothing, when you stay silent, you become untouchable. Listen carefully. When you stop responding, you begin to heal. When you stop defending yourself, you begin to grow. When you stop explaining your heart to people who are committed to misunderstanding you, you take back your peace. And that, more than anything you could ever say, shakes their world. Because they expected you to stay lost in the chaos. They expected you to stay broken. They expected you to keep fixing what they kept breaking. But now you have chosen something they never saw coming. You have chosen to be done. There is something deeply misunderstood about silence. Many think silence means weakness, that if you are quiet, you must be powerless. But here is what most people do not realize until life teaches them the hard way. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. It is strength. It is a power move. Anyone can yell. Anyone can argue. Anyone can react. That is easy. But to stand calmly in the middle of chaos, to have every reason to explode and still choose peace, that is real strength. And most people do not have it. Toxic people fear silence because it takes away their ability to manipulate. They do not know what you are thinking. They cannot twist your words. They cannot gaslight you or guilt trip you if you give them nothing to work with. Your silence becomes a mirror. It reflects their own noise back to them. It forces them to sit in it alone. And that terrifies them, because your silence says everything they never wanted to hear. It says you have outgrown the game. And once you stop playing, they stop winning. Most toxic people are emotional parasites. They do not seek peace. They seek a reaction. They want to poke at your wounds. They want to find your breaking point. The second you raise your voice, you hand them power. The moment you explain yourself to someone who refuses to understand you, you hand over your peace. And they enjoy that. They enjoy turning the story upside down, making you look like the problem. But silence blocks every route. They cannot twist what you did not say. They cannot bait you if you do not bite. When you master silence, you protect your peace and take control of the entire battlefield. You no longer need to play defense. You simply walk away and leave them swinging at shadows. That is why silence works, because it removes you from their chaos. It disconnects you from their toxic energy. It separates you from their drama. And when there is no more fuel left, their fire dies. Silence reveals more about people than their words ever will. Watch how they behave when you do not react. Notice how uncomfortable they get when you do not explain yourself. That is when their true intentions come out. That is when you see who they really are. Toxic people do not want a conversation. They want to control the narrative, and when your silence takes that away, they start scrambling. That is when the mask begins to slip. That is when the real face shows. They will call you cold. They will say you are heartless. They will claim you do not care. But what they really mean is that they can no longer control you. And that is not your burden. That is their truth being exposed. Your silence reveals everything. Not about you, about them. You no longer try to prove your worth. You no longer beg to be understood. You simply become still. And in that stillness, you begin to grow, you begin to mature, you begin to rise above. There is a quiet kind of power in becoming unreachable. When your silence turns into a boundary, you start to protect your soul in ways that words never could. Not everyone deserves to hear your voice. Just because someone knows your name does not mean they've earned a place in your emotional world. Silence becomes the way you reclaim your strength without lifting a finger. Because every time you try to explain yourself to someone who has already judged you, you waste your energy. Every time you defend your boundaries to someone who only wants to violate them, you end up drained. But when you remain silent, you keep your energy intact. It is not about ignoring the truth, it is about preserving your well-being. Some battles are best avoided, some victories are found in your refusal to engage. Your energy is not for everyone. Stop offering it to people who treat you like a challenge to conquer. You do not have to prove your worth. You do not have to explain your peace. Let your silence say everything. People will push, they will provoke. The more grounded you become in silence, the harder others will try to shake you, especially those who thrived on your reactions. They cannot stand being shut out. Ignoring them does not just frustrate them, it exposes them. That is when they start reaching out in desperation. The sudden messages, the phone calls from numbers you do not recognize, the guilt trips, the false apologies, the pleas dressed up as concern. They will say they miss you, but they do not miss you. They miss the grip they had. They miss the emotional pull. They miss the version of you who jumped to explain every emotion, every decision. But the version of you who has gone silent, the one who no longer gives them access, that version unsettles them. Because now they are locked out. Now they have nothing to twist. Your silence becomes both shield and sword. It is your protection and your strength. Not everyone is entitled to your emotions. Let that truth settle. Just because someone shared a chapter of your life does not mean they are owed your heart. Just because someone once showed up for you does not give them permission to keep tearing you down. Silence draws the boundary they cannot cross. It says clearly without words that your peace is no longer up for negotiation. And when you hold that silence consistently, when you stop making exceptions for the people who once hurt you, you prove that you have changed. You are not participating anymore. The moment you stop choosing their chaos and start choosing your calm, healing begins. Everything starts to shift. You attract more peace. You notice how light you feel without their weight pressing on you. You finally understand just how heavy their presence truly was. Silence is not weakness. It is strength in its most grounded form. It is not a lack of action. It is a conscious decision. It says you are no longer afraid to be by yourself. You are no longer afraid to release what no longer fits. You would rather walk alone in peace than sit surrounded by noise and conflict. That is the space where growth takes root. That is where you begin to hear your own voice again. Not the one that was always explaining and apologizing, but the one that simply knows its worth. Because silence does not mean you have nothing to say. It means you are saving your words for the right people. People who listen, people who respect, people who deserve. And that shift changes everything. Your relationships transform. Your standards rise. Your perspective clears. You no longer crave understanding from people who never tried to understand you. You no longer chase approval from those who never valued you. You realize the only validation that matters is the one you give yourself. And that is when true healing begins. The more you evolve, the quieter you become. Not out of fear, not out of defeat, but out of clarity. You have seen what chaos invites. You have felt the toll that drama takes. You have carried the weight of toxic energy, and now you choose to put it down. You release it not with anger, but with silence. That is how cycles break. That is how new paths open. Not with final words or dramatic exits, but with quiet decisions. You stop engaging. You stop replying. You stop fighting for places that drain you. And in doing so, you create space. Space for better conversations. Space for real connection. Space for healing to breathe. That is what silence gives you. Not emptiness, but room to grow. You do not need to announce your transformation. Your silence makes it undeniable. Let your silence be your message. Let the new boundaries speak on your behalf. You are no longer the person who used to argue to feel heard, no longer the one who cried just to be seen. You have grown. You have changed. You have come to understand that not everyone deserves access to your time, your energy, or your heart. And now, when someone tries to return with the same old chaos, they are met with nothing. No reaction, no anger, no explanations, just silence. And that silence shakes them in a way that your rage never could. It is not your fury that breaks them. It is your calm. Not your words, but your distance. Not your pain, but your progress. Because you are done playing their game. In a world addicted to noise and attention, your silence becomes your revolution. So the next time someone tries to drag you back into their drama, do not take the bait. Do not justify. Do not respond. Just stay still, stay silent. Let them talk to the void. Let them wrestle with your absence. Because the moment you realize your silence holds more power than any carefully crafted comeback, you rise beyond their reach. You do not need closure from the person who shattered you. You do not need validation from the ones who doubted you. You do not have to raise your voice to prove your value. Your peace speaks for itself. And once you protect that peace with silence, those who once had the power to destroy you will never be able to touch you again. You owe no one closure. Let that truth settle deep. You do not owe it to the person who betrayed your trust, who manipulated your kindness, who left you questioning your own worth. You do not owe explanations to those who watched you suffer and kept going. Too often we are taught that everything must end in a conversation, with closure, with mutual understanding. But life is not always that neat. Some people break you, then expect comfort as they walk away. They wound you, then wait to hear you say, "It's okay, I understand." But this time, you don't. You do not need to sit face to face with the one who damaged your spirit just to bring them peace. Sometimes the most powerful closure is no closure at all. Sometimes it is walking away without looking back. We are told that silence is cold, that leaving without a word is harsh. But more often than not, closure is used as a trap, a guilt trip disguised as maturity. It makes you feel like you are doing something wrong by protecting yourself. But where was their concern for kindness when they left you hurting? Where was their desire for closure when they ghosted you, used you, lied to you? They held all the control then. And now that you have taken your power back, they come around asking for clarity. But they do not want healing. They want access. They want to pull you back into their orbit. If you give them the conversation they ask for, they will use it to reopen the wound. They will pretend they want peace. But what they are really after is another chance to stay connected. Some people walk out of your life like it means nothing. Then when they see you standing tall, when they notice your silence, when they feel your distance, they panic. Not because they care about your healing, but because they miss the control. That is when they show up with soft words. Can we talk? I just want to clear the air. But do not be misled. They are not looking for truth. They are looking for an opening. Closure is not a dialogue. It is a decision. It is that quiet moment when you look within and say, "This ends here. I deserve more." No need for explanations, no emotional send-offs, no one-sided understanding. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself distance. You owe yourself healing. But you do not owe the people who hurt you a seat at your recovery. They do not get to witness your strength if they turned away from your struggle. They do not get another chance to damage you under the guise of ending things right. You do not need their permission to move forward. You do not need their company to validate your choice. If they cared about closure, They would have offered honesty when it counted. They would have shown consistency, respect, and truth. What they want now is not resolution, it is relief. They want your strength to ease their guilt. But you do not have to carry what they created. Let them hold their own consequences. That weight is no longer yours. Sometimes closure comes through silence, through messages that never get answered, through numbers that get blocked, through the quiet moment where you say to yourself, that was enough. Closure is not about what they want. It is about what you need. And sometimes what you need is to say nothing and keep walking. Often what you need is not another conversation. It is space. Space to rebuild yourself. Space to rediscover who you are without the weight of that relationship, that friendship, that connection that never felt real. You are not cold for choosing to protect your peace. You are not wrong for going silent. That is called wisdom. That is called maturity. That is called growing into someone who no longer chases chaos in order to feel complete. Some people do not deserve your goodbye. They only deserve the version of you who tried, and they lost that version. Let them sit with that. You have already spent too many nights going over the words you never got to say, too many moments wondering what you could have done differently. But healing does not come from more words. It comes from accepting what is. Accepting that they knew exactly what they were doing, accepting that the apology may never come, accepting that closure might never be offered, and being at peace with that anyway. That is real strength. That is real freedom. When you finally let go of the belief that someone else needs to give you peace, you become powerful in a way that cannot be shaken, because now you create your own healing. You no longer wait for an apology. You no longer wait for answers. You become the answer. And nothing is stronger than that. So do not let anyone guilt you into reopening wounds just because they are curious about your healing. You are not a display. You are not a memory to revisit when it suits them. You are a person who deserves to be protected, not picked apart. And if someone had the chance to treat you right and chose not to, they do not get to return and ask for peace. That is no longer their right. Closure does not have to be mutual. It does not have to be spoken. It can be quiet. It can be firm. It can be your silence. You do not need to hear someone say, I am sorry, to move on. You do not need to hear, I miss you, to feel valued. You already know your worth. You do not owe a response. You do not owe your time. You do not owe a conversation just because they are asking for one. That is the trap. That is how the cycle starts again. You walk in hoping for closure and walk out feeling even more broken. Do not go back. Do not answer the message. Do not return to what tried to destroy you. Your peace matters more than their curiosity. The people who love you with care and intention will never leave you needing closure. They will end things with honesty, clarity, and kindness. As for the rest, they made their choice. You make yours. And if your choice is silence, then let it be the most honest thing you ever speak. One day you will look back and be grateful you never responded. Grateful you did not send that message. Grateful you did not sit across from the person who hurt you just to offer them peace. Because closure does not heal when it comes from the same hands that caused the pain. True healing begins when you stop waiting for the person who broke you to be the one who fixes you. When you stop hoping for something they never gave you in the first place, that is when you grow. That is when you rise. That is when you finally realize you were always enough. And if they could not see that, it is their regret to live with, not yours. You simply move forward, quietly, confidently, without apology. So the next time you feel like you owe someone closure, pause. Ask yourself who really benefited the last time you gave your heart, your voice, your energy. Did it bring peace or more pain? If the answer is pain, you already have your closure. It is not something they can give. It is something you claim on your own terms, in your own time. And once you do, once you fully accept that you do not owe anyone an ending that makes them feel better, you free yourself. You walk away stronger, clearer, and untouchable. There comes a moment when you realize your peace is not something to bargain with. It is not something you offer just to keep someone else from feeling uncomfortable. Your peace is your home. It is your protection, and it is priceless. If it costs you your sanity, your sleep, your smile, it is too expensive. Let them say you have changed. Let them call you selfish. Yes, you have changed. You are done tolerating chaos that came dressed as love or loyalty. You are done engaging in conversations that leave you hollow. You have walked away from places where drama was the norm. Because once you know what peace feels like, you will fight for it with everything you have. You will stop apologizing for choosing what protects your spirit. There are people who are addicted to chaos. You are not one of them anymore. There are people who will poke at your spirit just to watch you react. They will twist your words, ignore your boundaries, stir confusion, and then act shocked when you finally break. But the issue is not your reaction. The issue is their disrespect. And the remedy is distance. You protect your energy the same way you would protect a child. You do not explain it. You do not justify it. You just do it. The people who genuinely value you will never ask you to sacrifice your peace in order to prove your love. The real ones bring calm, not chaos. They leave you feeling full, not drained. And the moment you start choosing yourself, the wrong people begin to disappear. That is not a loss. That is alignment. That is grace clearing the way. Not everyone should have access to you. Some people need to lose the privilege of your presence. Because peace does not come from anyone else. It is built within you. And to keep it, you have to be willing to let go of people without warning, without explanation, and without guilt. Stop reopening the door to those who once made your life feel like a battlefield. Stop responding to those who never showed up when your heart was hurting. Some of the most peaceful decisions you will ever make might look cold from the outside, but inside they will feel like coming home. That stillness, that silence, that space you create, that is you returning to yourself. That is you choosing presence over performance. And that one choice can change everything. You do not have to fight every battle. You do not have to attend every argument. Choosing peace is not weakness. It is wisdom. Sometimes the strongest statement is your refusal to engage. Sometimes growth looks like not being moved by the same chaos that used to consume you. Their words fall flat. Their games no longer work. Because peace teaches you to pause. It teaches you not to feed every fire. Some things are meant to burn out without your involvement. And when you reach that level of awareness, when you understand what truly deserves your energy, you stop merely surviving and start living. Your peace is not tied to how many people like you. It is not found in convincing others to see your worth. It is not something you earn by being louder, more agreeable, or more available. That is a trap that leads only to exhaustion. Real peace comes when you sit with yourself and feel whole. When you no longer need the applause, the crowd, the approval. Your value was never up for debate. Your worth has always been yours. And once you begin to love yourself deeply and fully, everything changes. You walk differently, you speak differently, you no longer beg for a place at the table. You either bring your own or walk away from the room entirely. Some people will misunderstand your peace. They will see your silence as arrogance, your solitude as loneliness. But that is only because they have never sat in stillness long enough to meet themselves. Do not let their discomfort interrupt your healing. You are not cold. You are clear. You are not distant. You are focused. You are not detached. You are disciplined. And there is power in that difference. You have been through the storms. You have cried in silence. You have rebuilt yourself without applause. So now, when someone tries to shake you, they discover your foundation is solid. Because when you learn the value of your peace, you stop allowing anything that threatens it. There is nothing more powerful than a person who has found peace within themselves. No more pretending, no more chasing, no more asking to be seen. That chapter is closed. Peace turns you inward, turns you whole. You stop searching for what you have already grown inside. That inner shift radiates. It draws the right people toward you and pushes the wrong ones away. You no longer feel the need to explain your boundaries. You no longer apologize for protecting your space. You begin treating your soul as sacred, because it is. And if someone cannot respect that, then their time in your life is over. People will still test your peace. Life will still throw challenges your way, but you will not respond the same. You have found your balance. You have learned to pause, to breathe, to ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Most times the answer is no. You begin to guard your energy like treasure, because it is. Your peace gives you clarity, strength, love, rest, and life. Do not trade it, not for conflict, not for guilt, not for comfort. If holding on to someone means letting go of yourself, it is not worth it. And you have already paid that price before. You are not paying it again. You've been the one who gave too much, who stayed too long, who kept quiet just to hold the peace, even when it broke you inside. But now you understand that true peace is not found in silence that costs you your spirit. Real peace is truth spoken calmly. It is walking away with grace. It is creating space for joy, for healing, for wholeness. You are no longer who you once were. You have grown, and you've earned this new chapter. In this season of your life, peace is no longer a luxury. It is your foundation. You are not here to carry the weight of everyone else. You are here to move in purpose, in strength, and in stillness. Let the world adjust to your boundaries. Let them question your distance. Let them wonder about your change. You do not need to explain. Peace never raises its voice. It simply exists. You do not owe anyone an explanation for putting yourself first. You do not have to justify the lines you draw or the doors you close. Your peace is priceless. Guard it like your future depends on it, because it truly does. There was a time when you kept quiet to avoid conflict, when you smiled through pain and excused behavior that hurt you. You convinced yourself to be understanding, to give one more chance, to overlook the signs. But now you see that your silence wasn't always kindness. Sometimes it was fear, fear of being alone, fear of rejection, fear of being called too sensitive or too much. But you were never too much. You were always more than enough. You were just surrounded by people who could not meet you where you stood. Now it is time to leave behind the version of you that tolerated what you didn't deserve. The version that swallowed pain just to keep others comfortable. Growth doesn't always come gently. Sometimes it shows up in heartbreak, in tears, in late nights spent wondering why they couldn't see your worth. And then suddenly something shifts. One day, you wake up and stop begging to be treated right. You stop explaining your heart to people who never truly listened. You stop trying to prove your value to those who never saw it. That is the moment you reclaim your power. That is when you start honoring your boundaries, no matter who feels uncomfortable. You begin to expect respect without having to demand it. You stop laughing off disrespect and ignoring the signs you used to excuse. You're not cold, you're aware. You've grown into someone who knows that real love never asks you to lose yourself. Anyone who expects you to choose between your dignity and their comfort does not belong in your life. The old you may have tolerated that. The old you may have reasoned with them, made space for them, tried to understand them. But the healed you walks away. The healed you lets go without apology. You no longer play the games. You no longer chase the noise. You no longer forget your worth to keep someone else at peace. Let them say you've changed. You have. Change is what growth looks like. And sometimes that change is quiet. Sometimes it is distance. Sometimes it is saying nothing at all. You stop explaining yourself. You stop shrinking to fit into places you've outgrown. You stop chasing closure from people who never had the capacity to give it. You learn how to give it to yourself. You learn how to stand alone and feel whole. You learn that walking away is not weakness. It is power. It is freedom. The version of you that allowed disrespect in the name of loyalty no longer exists. That chapter is over. You love yourself too deeply now to entertain what once broke you. You no longer stay in conversations that leave you feeling confused. You no longer sit at tables where love feels conditional and respect feels earned. You see things clearly. You've come too far to look back. You see now how you used to give endlessly while others only took, And you forgive yourself, not for allowing it, but for not knowing better at the time. That version of you didn't yet understand the power you held. But now you do. And with that awareness comes a new standard, a new voice, a new self that no longer settles for less than what you offer to others. You've come to understand that not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. Some were only meant to be in the audience. Some were just chapters, not the whole story. And you are not bitter. You are better. You are not carrying grudges. You are holding boundaries. There's a difference. You no longer seek to prove a point. You seek peace. You do not retaliate. You walk away. Because you've realized your energy is a valuable resource, and you are done investing it in people who can't hold the weight of your presence. You remember the old you, the one who explained, defended, pleaded. But the person you are now leaves without noise, leaves without needing to be understood. That silence is no longer emptiness. It's your strength. The people who truly care will never ask you to sacrifice your self-respect in the name of love. They won't silence you with guilt. They won't hold you hostage with manipulation. They will show up with clarity, with consistency, with care. They will honor your boundaries, not challenge them. And that is who you've learned to wait for. You've become patient, not desperate. Discerning, not bitter. Because peace is more fulfilling than attention. Respect is more valuable than hollow words. Solitude is more healing than false companionship. And your self-love, it's no longer up for debate. It's your foundation now. It's your armor. It's your quiet revolution. You outgrew their version of love, the kind that demanded you lose yourself just to keep them close, the kind that left you questioning instead of certain, the kind that wounded more than it healed. You outgrew the games, the inconsistencies, the broken promises, the emotional tug of war. You stopped chasing approval. You stopped waiting for an apology. You stopped needing them to see your worth, because now you see it, now you live it. Now you embody it. You look in the mirror and no longer see someone begging to be chosen. You see someone who chooses themselves with clarity and confidence. Maybe that means there are fewer people around you now. Maybe you had to walk through loneliness to remember your own light. But that silence gave you your voice back. That solitude introduced you to your power. That stillness reminded you of who you are. You stopped asking, "What did I do wrong?" and started saying, "This is what I deserve." And from that moment, everything changed. You began attracting peace. You began protecting your joy. You created space for what feeds your soul. You stopped looking back. Because growth is not always loud, but it always transforms. And if you're wondering whether it's okay to walk away from anything that disrespects you, let this be your answer. It's not just okay, it's necessary. It's sacred. It's survival. You were not meant to carry the weight of those who choose to stay stuck. You were meant to rise, to evolve, to become everything your younger self dreamed of being. And every time you say no to what hurts you, every time you choose your peace over chaos, your self-respect over approval, you step further into the life you were always meant to live. You are not who you once were. You've outgrown that version. And there is no going back. There comes a point when peace becomes more important than opinions, more sacred than attention, more powerful than proving your point. You've been there before. You've tried to explain yourself to people who never listened. You've defended your truth to those who only argued. You stood inside other people's storms and called it love, but not anymore. Now you see it clearly. The drama, the noise, the emotional traps. You see how every time you respond, you fuel their fire. Every time you explain, you shrink your peace just to keep them comfortable. But that ends now. You stop feeding the chaos. You stop giving your energy to people who don't want healing. They want control. They want your reaction. They want to shake your peace. Because as long as you are tangled in their web, they feel important. But the moment you choose silence, the moment you stop explaining, stop reacting, stop responding, everything shifts. Watch how quickly their power fades. Watch how uncomfortable your calm makes them. Because you finally remembered who you are. and no one can take that from you. That's not your problem. That's their reflection. When you stop fueling their chaos, you reveal the truth they've worked hard to bury. You expose their need for control while reclaiming your own. It can be tempting to respond, to defend yourself, to present your side, to prove them wrong. But real strength is restraint. Power isn't found in reacting. It's found in the stillness, in the decision to stay grounded while someone else tries to pull you into their storm. They may lie. They may twist your words. They may try to provoke you into playing a part they wrote for you. But let them talk. Let them spin their stories in the echo chamber of their own projections. Truth doesn't need an audience to remain true. And you don't need to defend yourself in a space where no one is really listening, where judgment has already been passed and insecurities run the show. You've grown beyond the need to answer every insult. You've outgrown the urge to engage with people who hope to make you look unstable just to justify their own behavior. They want to show. They want to trigger you. They want to say, "See, I knew they'd react like that." Don't give them the satisfaction. Let your silence be the loudest thing in the room. Let your self-control speak for you. You don't win every battle by showing up. Some battles are traps. Some arguments are distractions. That's why wisdom matters more than noise. You're not here to perform. You're not here to beg for respect. You're here to guard your energy, protect your peace, and honor your purpose. And peace is not passive. It's intentional. It's you choosing not to lower yourself to match someone else's dysfunction. The old you might have fired back, might have explained every detail, might have stayed up all night trying to make someone understand. But now, you read it and let it be. You hear the gossip and remain still. You feel the pressure and keep moving forward. Not everything deserves your attention. Not every comment needs a reply. Some things are simply beneath you now. And that's not arrogance, that's clarity. That's growth. That's wisdom born from experience. The version of you who once got pulled into every storm is no longer available. It takes maturity to choose peace in a world addicted to conflict. It takes strength to stay quiet when noise feels justified. You're not walking away because you're weak. You're walking away because you're powerful enough not to engage. At first, it may feel strange. It may feel lonely. You might even miss the chaos a little, because for a long time, drama felt like attention. But peace, real peace, is a deeper kind of comfort. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it simply surrounds you, holds you, and reminds you that you're safe now. And the more you protect that peace, the more you see how little you needed the noise in the first place. You don't have to be part of every conversation. You don't have to correct every lie. You don't have to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to stay rooted in your truth, to stay focused on your path, to guard your mind and your energy. And when they realize they can't provoke you, they'll either rise to meet you or fall away. Either way, you win. Let them underestimate you. Let them twist the story. Let them tell their version. Your power was never in their hands. It has always been in your own. You don't need to light a fire to be seen. You don't need to argue to be right. Your growth, your calm, your silence, they speak volumes. And they will shake those who once thought they could break you, because here you are, unshaken, steady, grounded. And that unsettles anyone still living in chaos. Your refusal to react is your freedom. You begin to find peace when you stop giving your energy to what drains it. You find joy when you stop renting space in your mind to negativity. You find freedom not through control, but through surrender, through letting go of the need to explain, to fix, to convince. Sometimes the most powerful move is simply walking away, quietly, confidently, with your head high and your heart whole. Let them wonder. Let them gossip. Let them stir the pot. You're not even at the table anymore. You've entered a new space, a higher place, a different chapter, and that's where your true power lives. So when the noise comes knocking, don't open the door. Don't respond. Don't react. Let it knock. Let it fade. Because your silence, that's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's healing. That's what it looks like when you stop feeding the drama and start feeding your soul. There comes a moment when you realize that love isn't just about how you treat others. It's about how you treat yourself. Setting boundaries is one of the deepest forms of self-love. It's not about shutting people out. It's about no longer letting others take from you without consent. You've been stretched thin, drained by situations that never helped you grow, and you called it love, loyalty, or obligation. But the truth is, you were bleeding while they were feeding. Now it's time to stop betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. Your peace, your time, your energy. These are sacred. Not everyone gets access. You were told that saying no makes you selfish, that creating space makes you rude. But really, they just got used to the version of you who didn't have boundaries. The version who overgave, who kept showing up even when you were empty. Now that you're changing, they call it distance. But growth looks like betrayal to those who benefited from your silence. You're not hard to love. You're just not easy to use anymore. And that's a shift that changes everything. Because once you choose yourself, people either respect you or show you they never did. Boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They don't block love. They protect it. They guard your heart from exhaustion, your mind from manipulation, your time from waste. You're allowed to say, "I'm not available for this." You're allowed to walk away from chaos, entitlement, and disrespect. You don't need permission to protect your peace. You don't owe unlimited access to your soul. That's not love. That's self-abandonment. And it ends the moment you decide to love yourself clearly, loudly, fully. When you set boundaries, expect pushback. Some will guilt trip you, some will call you cold, others will say you've changed. Let them. The ones who love you will adjust, the rest can leave. You were not made to shrink. You are not required to be a doormat to prove your goodness. Choose peace over pleasing. Say no when you need to. Walk away when something feels like disrespect dressed up in kindness. People will always test how little they can give and still keep you. But now you know better. You're learning to unlearn. You're releasing the need to perform for love and choosing instead to stand in your truth. Boundaries are not harsh. They are clarity. They tell others, this is how I love, and this is how I expect to be loved. They are not spoken once. They are shown through action, upheld by consistency, backed by self-respect. And if someone can't meet your standard, they don't belong at your table. You've given too much to people who gave too little. You've stayed in spaces that didn't honor you. But now you choose differently. You protect yourself not just with words, but with decisions. Every time you say no to toxicity, you say yes to your healing. Every time you choose peace, you affirm your growth. Every time you walk away from disrespect, you say to yourself, I deserve more. The world may try to convince you that love means giving endlessly, but giving without boundaries isn't love. It's self-neglect, and it leaves you empty. That's why you felt tired, overlooked, and unseen, because you kept pouring into others who vanished when you needed them. But now, you've changed. You're awake, and awareness is power. It reminds you that not everyone should have access. Not every call needs to be answered. Your peace is too valuable to trade. Your soul too sacred to compromise. Let them talk. Let them call you distant or difficult. Their words won't harm you like abandoning yourself once did. You're not who you were, and you're never going back. You've already lived that life, the one where you gave too much, stayed too long, and lost pieces of yourself trying to be what others needed. It nearly cost you everything, your peace, your joy, your sense of self. So now you're choosing differently. You're choosing you, not because you think you're better, but because you finally understand your worth. You finally believe that the love and protection you so freely gave to others is something you also deserve. You're not building walls to shut people out. You're building doors. Doors that lock when needed, that open when it's safe, that say only healthy love is welcome here. And yes, people will leave. That's part of it. Some will fall away when you stop bending over backwards. Some will disappear when you stop playing the part they wrote for you. Let them. Your boundaries didn't ruin the connection. Their inability to respect them did. That's not your fault. That's their reflection. You simply held up the mirror, and now you're free. Free to create a life that feels safe, full, and real. One built on mutual respect, on love that doesn't demand your silence or your sacrifice. Boundaries are not just self-care. They are self-love. And it's time to walk in that love without apology. There comes a moment when everything feels tight. Your job, your relationships, even the way you see yourself. You feel trapped in a life that no longer fits. And it's easy to freeze there, to believe this is just how it is. But freedom doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It comes through fire. It begins with one brave choice, the decision to stop replaying the same old story and start writing a new one. You don't need to see the whole path. You only need to take one step. That step away from what's breaking you, away from the excuses, away from the lie that this is all you get. Fear will always shout before you move. It'll tell you you're not ready, that it's too late, that you're too broken. But fear only has power if you stay still. The second you move, you cut its voice in half. Every time you speak up for yourself, every time you walk away from what isn't love, every time you choose peace over pain, you take your power back. That's freedom. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just you whispering in the dark, "I deserve better." You've been taught to play small, to shrink your dreams, to apologize for expecting more. Every time you gave in to that voice, you built another bar on the cage. But you were never meant to live caged. There's a lion inside you. There's a fire waiting to be set free. The pressure you feel, the heaviness, it's not weakness. It's your spirit trying to break through. And one bold step is all it takes. One move to crack the comfort and breathe again, to feel alive again, to stop existing and truly start living. No one is coming to give you permission. No one is handing you the life you dream of. That is yours to claim. It doesn't matter how long you've been stuck or how many times you've fallen. What matters is what you choose now, right now. Boldness doesn't come from confidence. Boldness builds it. You don't wait for courage. You move, and courage meets you there. All it takes is one step. Not a perfect plan, just movement. And then another. Until you look back and realize you're not trapped anymore. You're free, and you did it. You owe it to yourself to find out who you could become if you stopped letting fear lead the way. You owe it to the younger version of yourself, the one who believed in dreams before the world tried to shrink them. And you owe it to the future you, the one counting on your courage right now. That healed, grounded, powerful version of you is waiting on one decision. The choice to move, to speak, to try, to let go. Whatever it is that's been tugging at your soul, that quiet inner pull, that's your path. And no, you won't have all the answers. You're not supposed to. The path doesn't reveal itself to those who stay comfortable. It unfolds for those willing to move through the unknown with faith. You weren't made to stay in spaces that drain you. You weren't created to keep serving people who don't value you. You weren't born to relive the same pain, the same doubts, the same cycles. Freedom is yours by design, but like any gift, it has to be claimed. And when you begin moving toward truth, life starts shifting. People will fall away. Environments will stop fitting. Your growth will make others uncomfortable. But that's not a reason to stop. That's confirmation you're headed somewhere new. Nothing compares to becoming the version of yourself you were always meant to be. It won't be easy. Growth rarely is. There will be pain. There will be loss. Let's not pretend that change is soft, but staying stuck, betraying yourself to keep others happy, that pain runs deeper. That's the pain that steals your light day by day. You deserve more than that. You deserve mornings that feel light and nights that don't echo with regret. And that life starts with a single decision. Maybe it's a conversation. Maybe it's cutting ties. Maybe it's finally being honest with yourself. You already know what it is. The knowing has been there. Now it's time to act on it. Not later, not next week. Now, because nothing changes if nothing changes. You can pray, hope, visualize all you want, but without action, faith becomes fantasy. You want freedom? Walk like it's already yours. Speak like the chains are broken. Think like you've already crossed the threshold. That shift in mindset is where the power begins. The first step isn't the finish line, it's the spark. It's what ignites everything that follows. And when you do take that step, even if it's small, even if you're scared, something powerful will rise inside of you. A glimpse of who you are without the fear. A taste of the life that's been waiting for you. That glimpse will carry you when it's hard. It will remind you that you've never been powerless. You were just waiting. And the wait is over. It's your time now. Time to stop asking for permission. Time to stop justifying your worth. Time to stop playing it small to stay safe. You weren't born to survive. You were born to rise. And it all begins with one bold, beautiful, terrifying step forward. Sometimes life whispers, sometimes it shouts, but the truth stays the same. You were never meant to live small, not meant to be silent in the face of disrespect, to carry pain that was never yours, to trade your peace for people who never showed up for you. Everything you've walked through, every silence you turned into strength, every boundary born from self-respect, every moment you chose growth over comfort, has led here. To this truth, your freedom begins the moment you decide you're worth it. Worth the fight, worth the change, worth the life you've always dreamed of living. You are not here to be buried beneath the weight of other people's opinions. You are not responsible for fixing what you didn't break or staying in places your soul has outgrown. The noise fades when you stop feeding it. Real freedom begins the moment you stop waiting for permission. You're allowed to walk away from what no longer feels right. You're allowed to say no without guilt. You're allowed to let go of the version of yourself that accepted chaos and mistook it for love. And you're allowed to protect your peace like it's sacred because it is. This journey you're on isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you've always been, before the world told you to doubt your voice, your feelings, your worth. You were never too much. Your standards were never too high. You were never asking for too much. You were asking the wrong people. You've always been enough. You just forgot. But now you remember. Now you stand with more clarity. Now you speak with softer strength. You don't chase closure, you live it. You don't chase people, you honor your presence. You don't wait for freedom, you walk in it. All it takes is one honest moment, one deep breath, one decision to stop settling. The world may not cheer. The people around you may not understand, but your soul will. It will exhale. It will rise. And that is what matters. You weren't made to live in survival mode. You were made to thrive, to stand in your truth with peace, with purpose, and with dignity. No matter how lost you felt, no matter how long it's taken, you can begin again. Right now, right here, fully, freely, and without apology. Thank you for making space for truth, for choosing yourself even when it hurt, for walking toward freedom when staying would have been easier. May your steps be bold, your peace be steady, and your light never fade. Stay strong, stay grounded, and above all, stay free.